Welcome to the Burnout to Lit Up podcast. I am your host, Erica Del Pozo, occupational therapist, certified health coach, CEO and founder of Joy Energy Time, Miami Girl, and Pineapple Lover. In this podcast, we provide the resources on how to deal with stress, burnout, and anxiety, how to get energized, find true satisfaction and alignment in your life, and more. You will learn how to slay your burnout beast and go from burnt out to a lit up life. Let's do this. Welcome to the Burnout to Lit Up podcast. If you are new, welcome. If you are a returning listener, welcome back. It's me, Erica, and I'm so excited to have you here. Today, I'm going to be talking about energy. I will be sharing 5 little life hacks about maintaining optimal energy in and out of work. So just remember that these are suggestions. I'm not a doctor. You always want to be sure that you consult your doctor before beginning any program. This episode is brought to you by my free guide called The Ultimate Free Burnout Prevention Guide for Healthcare Professionals. So if you're a healthcare professional and you're listening to this episode, then you need to get your hands on this guide. It's like a mini ebook, and not to toot my own horn or anything, but I'm really proud of this guide. It's pretty amazing. It's your A to Z burnout prevention in a nutshell. There's a lot of things in the guide that you can take away and apply in your life. So a lot of hands-on things that you can do. So the link to the guide is in the show notes. And if you're watching on Instagram, the link to the guide is in my bio. So the little fun fact of the day, if you're new to me and this podcast, I'm from Miami. I have what is known as the Miami accent. Now, some people tell me it's not as bad as it could be, but other people notice my Miami accent right away. So it's all in the eyes of the beholder, or in the ears of the beholder, I should say. And I grew up in Miami. I went to college and grad school in Fort Lauderdale. So I spent a few years away from Miami, and I started to, I just got over Miami. I was totally over it. I didn't want to go there. I just wanted to hang out in Fort Lauderdale. And it made sense. My friends in school was in Fort Lauderdale. But after school, I fell back in love again with Miami. And sadly now I have a long distance relationship with Miami because I live in Delray Beach, which is an hour away. So I try to make it work. I go there a lot, and I just love Miami. It's a very special city. If you've ever been there, you know it's very unique, very different, and it's my home, so I love it. All right, so let's get on to these 5 life hacks for increased energy. Now, before I talk about those, actually, I want to go into stress, because these 5 life hacks for energy have to do with the idea, just the assumption that you're dealing with a lot of stress. So how can we increase your energy levels if you're dealing with chronic stress? So if you're dealing with chronic stress, what that means is that it can reduce levels of serotonin and dopamine, which are important players in regulating our mood, tension, energy, and motivation. Low levels of serotonin and dopamine can contribute to depression, anxiety, binge eating, addiction, apathy, feeling lethargic. So that is not good. We don't want that. Stress can cause fatigue really in so many ways. It can occur through the HPA axis dysfunction. Because chronic stress leads to chronic activation of the HPA axis over time, it can lead to a breakdown, and that means it starts to become resistant to the negative feedback loop, which basically tells our system to calm down. Chronic stress can lead to depleting your endocannabinoid system, which is responsible for energy level and alertness, regulation, regulating inflammation, fighting stress, fear, pain, anxiety, starting and stopping our body's stress response. So chronic stress really messes you up. It could damage your mitochondria, and it could just affect you in a million other ways. So being exposed to chronic stress, recognize that you are being exposed to chronic stress over a long period of time, and understand how it is impacting your life, at the cellular level and every other aspect of your life. All right, so let's start with the 5 life hacks. Are you ready? Let's start with everyone's favorite thing to do: sleep. I love to sleep. Nearly half of American adults, according to a survey from the American Psychological Association in 2015, 46% of people report laying awake at night as a result of stress, and they reported sleeping fairly to poorly when stressed. Burnout is positively associated with poor quality of sleep, not restorative sleep. Association of not feeling fresh on awakening in the presence of sleepiness and fatigue during the day. I mean, I don't have to tell you that sleep is important. We all know that, right? But did you know that the first third of sleep is the most restorative phase of sleep? So when you're snoozing in the morning and you're thinking that's going to refresh you, it's actually not. You get your most restorative sleep in the first phase of sleep. So snoozing is quite the opposite. It's going to make you more tired. I always tell my husband that, to stop snoozing so much. Also during sleep, peripheral anabolic processes such as secretion of growth hormone and catabolic processes such as secretion of cortisol and adrenaline are suppressed. Dr. Michael Bruce is a sleep specialist, and in his book titled The Power of When, which, by the way, that book has changed my life. I can talk about it all day long. I'm actually so excited about this book and talking about it, and I've mentioned it in other episodes that in the show notes for this episode, I have the link to buy the book. So it is so freaking good. You have to read it. So he talks about in The Power of When, how insomniacs, for people that have insomnia, cortisol actually rises and is high at night and during sleep and is low in the morning. And it should be the opposite. Cortisol should be low at night and during sleep, and it should be highest in the morning. So for insomniacs, that's really the problem. It's cortisol, the chronorhythm is way thrown off. Dr. Michael Bruce also talks about social jet lag, which occurs when you go to bed and wake up later on weekends than during the week. Who is guilty of that, right? We all are. So doing that is associated with poorer health, worse mood, and increased sleepiness and fatigue. I mean, he talks about how this social jet lag can throw you off for days, and the cycle repeats and repeats. So if you're not going to sleep or waking up at the same time every day, that's going to throw you off, and you're never going to get into a rhythm. So a tip for quality sleep and to avoid the social jet lag is to stick to a sleep schedule of the same bedtime and wake time, even on the weekends. Dr. Michael Bruce even advises against sleeping on the weekends. And although I hate the sound of that, I have personally noticed how it impacts me, and now I've made more of an effort to maintain the same sleep schedule more or less on the weekends, and I have noticed a difference. So it really is true. He's not making this up. It's really helpful. I know it's hard because especially if you're in your younger 20s, you're out all night during the weekend, which I really just can't do anymore. It's really hard when you get older. So yeah, just try your best to stick to a steady sleep schedule during the week and the weekend. So tip number 2 for energy is eat a protein-rich breakfast. How many of you eat carbs for breakfast, or you just don't eat breakfast? We crave carbs in the morning, especially if we're tired, because we have an increased secretion of ghrelin and leptin. Poor sleep can erode willpower and our ability to resist temptation, which adds to the negative effects of cortisol on the prefrontal cortex. So if you don't get a good quality of sleep due to maybe the first fact of not staying on a steady sleep schedule, when you wake up in the morning, you can in fact crave more carbs. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and being chronically exposed to stress can slow down your metabolism. Plus, if you're chronically stressed, then you crave comfort foods, and they are easy to eat and highly processed, right? Those are the things we crave if we're chronically stressed. And there was actually a study done by the University of Missouri, and they found that eating a high protein breakfast made the young women in the study feel fuller throughout the day and they ate a smaller dinner and fewer nighttime snacks. They found that, in contrast, starting the day off with a low protein breakfast or no breakfast at all actually made the study subjects more likely to graze on unhealthy, like high calorie but low nutrient foods throughout the day. So that's an interesting article. I'm putting up the website where it cites that article and that study, because I'm putting that up in the show notes. So if you want to read more about it, it's up there. But that goes to show that eating a breakfast, especially one that is rich in protein, is going to help you not just make better choices throughout the day, but keep you fuller longer. And eating a protein-rich breakfast is going to help wake you up. Dr. Bruce talks about that in his book, The Power of One. How if you start off your day by eating a carbolicious breakfast, that it can secrete serotonin and that will make you sleepy. So if you want more energy in your day, you should start your day with a protein-rich breakfast and then save the carbs that are going to make you nice and comfy and sleepy for dinner, like sweet potatoes. Going back to that study, they found this study in the University of Missouri. They found that eating protein early in the day seems to affect gastrointestinal hormones, which signal the brain to adjust appetite and satiety. So boom, there's the evidence. Eat a protein-rich breakfast. Tip number 3. If you're stressed or burnt out, you're most likely feeling low on not just mental energy, but physical energy too, right? So did you know that moving large muscle groups in a repetitive, rhythmical pattern can help you feel more calm? So, in other words, you should exercise. I know that sounds so basic, like to get more energy, exercise, right? Yeah, it's pretty basic, I have to admit, but like I just can't talk about energy on an episode and not throw it in there. So before you roll your eyes at me, I want you to think about this. Okay, let me start that. Before you roll your eyes, I want you to think about this. You want to protect your brain from premature aging associated with chronic stress, right? Telomeres, which is a compound structure at the end of a chromosome, are worn down by chronic stress, causing cells to age quicker. Regular vigorous exercise may actually buffer us at a cellular level against the negative effects of stress. There was a study done in this book that I read, and they took 2 different groups of mothers that had a child with a chronic disability. And what they found is that the mothers that perceived that role of caring for a child that has different abilities as stressful, their telomeres shortened, and that meant that was the equivalent of 10 years of aging, versus mothers that perceived caring for their children as not stressful, their telomeres did not shorten. So how you view your stress can affect you at a cellular level. Like, wow, that is super powerful. How you view your stress can affect you at a cellular level. Don't spend all your downtime vegging out and engaging in boring activities. Engage in activities that challenge and interest you. So if you don't exercise or you just really can't make it a part of your routine, it could be helpful to break it down like this. You ready? Take notes because this might help you. So give yourself a cue that motivates you to do the behavior. So if you want to start running or walking, leave your sneakers out as a sign or cue to put them on and start walking. So the routine is actually engaging in the behavior. So let's say you start engaging on a regular basis. Let's say, for example, running for 2 miles a day. So the reward is the accomplishment, that feeling afterwards, that you're looking at how your body is changing, or you're thinking about how you feel after that run. You begin to record your daily activity and calories burned. So gradually over time, you build and practice and maintain this routine. You build more exercise into your routine. You can find more specific cues to prompt you, like signing up for a class, an inspiring photo, meeting up with a friend to work out. You have your intrinsic motivators in place, that desire to have more energy, that desire to manage your stress. So whatever physical activity can do for you. Find something you naturally enjoy, because variety versus routine, for some people, they like the variety, and for some people, they need more of that solid routine. So do you like to do exercise classes with other people versus solo workouts? Would you prefer to engage more in team sports versus the gym? Like, you have to find what's actually motivating for you. And what are the rewards? The rewards can be losing X amount of pounds, for example, but think about the rewards that go beyond an outcome. Like, do you feel calm afterwards? Do you feel a little de-stressed? Do you feel more energy? Are you fitting into your clothes better? Like, what are some other things, some other rewards besides just losing the weight or gaining muscle or whatever it is? Like, think about those other things. And really sit down to determine what are your barriers in setting this routine. A lot of people are afraid of how they're going to feel, afraid that exercise is going to be this difficult, laborious thing. But find a plan to start addressing your barriers. You can start with a small goal, like walking 20 minutes a day. Start off small. Start off with something that doesn't even feel hard. And then, just for the sake of really getting that into your routine. Are you busy? Is that a barrier? Well, if you're busy, decide which days that you're going to dedicate to exercise and for how long. Are you tired or hungry? Then maybe you can exercise in the morning or during lunchtime and then have your meal right after, right? Working out, is it expensive? I mean, for me, I don't want to spend a ton of money at a gym right now, so I just work out at home. So don't let those excuses or those barriers stop you, because it's going to impact your health in a positive way, and it's going to help you deal with chronic stress better. So it's about finding what works for you. Tip number 4. This is a tip now to protect your mental energy, your sacred mental energy. Developments in information and communication technology have basically eliminated physical constraints to reach out to employees, customers, business hours, etc. And now workers are expected to be available basically at any given time. So as a result, work is no longer spatially distinct from non-work. Work can come to you versus you having to go to work, right? So workers are working on their free time to meet the job demands and to stay competitive, right? I have to definitely work during my non-work hours. And it's in the culture that it's become more and more expected of you to be available to address these work issues during non-work hours. Raise your hand. I can't see you, but raise your hand if you find this to be true, if you are working on your free time. I mean, I am an adjunct professor at the moment, and it's within my nature of my work. Like, I'm just paid for showing up to class as an adjunct, and that's it. I am not paid for all the prep time it takes for me to prepare for these classes. And I mean, I haven't done the math, but I'm approximating that in any given week of being an adjunct, it will take me about 4 to 6, sometimes even 8 hours to prepare for a class. So that's like a full day where I'm just working for free. And I signed up for it. It's what is expected as an adjunct. So at least it was clear to me that, hey, this is the life of an adjunct. It's not super glamorous or anything. So that's just the nature of the work. But in healthcare, and especially as a therapist and outpatient, I do a lot of my work at home because I don't have the time to do it at work. I'm treating during work, but then at home I have to do the notes and actually do the paperwork. So that's what I mean. It's working during non-work hours in this day and age, so you can take your work home with you, and that's draining. Workplace telepressure, which is the combination of preoccupation and immediately responding to work-related messages, predicts burnout, low sleep quality, and absenteeism. Long work hours and spillover of work to non-work hours may seriously interfere with one's ability to self-regulate and recover because there may be less time to recover. And when there's less time to recover, that can lead to burnout. Employees that engage in long working hours are more likely to experience a depressive state, anxiety, sleep disturbances, and cardiovascular disease. So it's not just the negative job characteristics that you may experience at work, but actually working longer hours in itself affects fatigue, health, and well-being. According to this article, I can't really say their names, Baker, Terrace, and Demiruti in 2007, they uncovered a negative reciprocal association with work-home interference and this need for recovery. Due to depleted individual resources, people feel like they are not recovered and lack energy to participate in life and meet home demands. And this lack of work-related recovery, which is a subdimension of control opportunities, leads to this need for recovery, sleep disturbances, and health complaints. So, what can you do? You can unplug. You have got to be conscious about building in unplugged time during your day. It has to be something that you make the time for, and make it something that's super delicious. It's such a treat to unplug. Make it so that it's that special time for yourself. Psychological detachment is one of the biggest components of recovery, which not only means refraining from completing job-related activities after work and not thinking about it, like switching off, but actively engaging in other activities like sports, hobbies, joint activities with others. If you have full detachment, that leads to high work and life satisfaction, yay, and positive affect. But if you have poor detachment, that leads to high levels of fatigue and sleep problems. Man, all these things lead to sleep problems, and ain't nobody got time for that. We all need our sleep. Setting boundaries. The rest of the world is getting better at this work-life balance thing than we are, even though I don't really like the word work-life balance so much. But for example, in France, there are labor agreements that limit email traffic after 6 p.m. They take, actually, research has shown that taking shorter getaways or respites, I think that's how you say it, for example, once a month, is effective at enhancing well-being and maybe more effective at reducing burnout in comparison to longer and infrequent respite, such as a long vacation once a year. That's why I'm a fan of girls' weekends. I'm a fan of little like weekend trips. They're recharging and it's just a little break, and it's like that. It's refreshing to do that. And there are studies that suggest that can lead to feeling more recharged versus killing yourself all year and taking that 1 week or 2 week vacation or whatever. I mean, that's nice too, but you got to also consider giving yourself a little break every month or every other month. Yeah, so France has these labor agreements. I mean, I have the stats somewhere on my computer of all the things that are going on in the world that make me a little jealous. So in terms of work, other countries are getting it better. Hopefully we're going in that direction in the US. And I'm going to post those in the show notes. It's some pretty interesting facts about labor laws. So I'm going to share that with you in the show notes. All right. One thing that really bothers me is getting emails from work when I'm away on vacation. If it's a long vacation, they won't bother me. But if I've taken a day off or two and I've maybe gone out of town or whatever, if I've taken days off and I'm having my little staycation or a little getaway and I get emails, that bothers me because I shouldn't be expected to answer them just because I've taken a day off. Like a day off is a day off. And you can just say no, okay? Just say no to answering emails when you're not at work, okay? We could say no to drugs and say no to answering emails when you're not at work. All right, last little tip. Tip number 5 is creating energizing rituals. So what I've touched upon so far wouldn't really make sense if it wasn't for this very last tip. So listen carefully. We are in a world where our brains are constantly bombarded and taxed thanks to flickering lights, rapidly changing sights and sounds, text, phone, social media, emails, TV, music, movies, everything. And on top of that, we are always on the freaking go. Our lives are on the go. That's just how we live. And our bodies and brains literally were not designed for this. Our brain's attempts in coping is by constantly trying to figure out how to overcome stress and find a way to calm itself down. So it does this primarily through increasing the inhibitory neurotransmitters, serotonin and GABA. GABA is a sheath inhibitory neurotransmitter. But when these systems are constantly taxed, like because we're bombarded with sensory input every single day, it's kind of like a losing battle, and you eventually wear out the system and start to create neurotransmitter imbalances. Our attention span in 2018 is 10.7 seconds, okay? I'm just kidding. I just made that up. I really don't know if there's an average or a study on our attention span. But like, it really does feel that way. It really feels like our attention span has gotten way shorter over time. We are, at least in this society, we're constantly moving from one thing to another. We all have developed squirrel brain. I mean, I can't speak for everyone, but that's just how I feel as a society. We have squirrel brain. So how can we create energizing rituals? I suggest avoiding the news or TV that has violence or games that are fast-paced or anything like that. Like, avoid that heavy stimulation within an hour before bed. That's really going to mess up with your sleep. Get outside. Get in the nature. And that goes with the unplugging. You can unplug and go outside, and it's just a wonderful thing. It's not just about unplugging just for the sake of unplugging, but what are we going to do with that time? How are we going to nurture our sensory systems? Because we are sensory beings and we need calming sensory input to regulate ourselves. An energizing ritual that works for me is I light a yummy candle. I have calming music in the background. And I usually do this at night while I'm finishing up some work. Because, like, let's be honest, at this point in my life, I'm always fucking working. But it's relaxing time. It's my relaxing, calm down time to finish some work with the candle and the music and the dim lights. So it energizes me in a way that is preparing me for sleep, to have a restful sleep. An energizing ritual I have in the morning is getting out in the sunlight and taking a walk with my husband, because you want that sunlight to wake you up, and it's going to help regulate your circadian rhythm, being exposed to light in the morning. So that's my energizing ritual. I know so many people are stimulated by their phones and computer and TV and all this stuff. Sometime from the moment we wake up to the moment we go to bed, it's kind of hard to avoid being stimulated by screens all the time. So of course your brain is exhausted. I mean, by the time it's 9 or 10 o'clock, you're exhausted, and your form of unwinding can be sedentary because that's all the energy you have left. So it's important to find energizing rituals throughout the day that you can have that downtime. You can have that time to zone out. Like, we all need that. But also, what can you do in the morning? What can you do in the middle of the day? What are some things that you can do just for you? I also love to journal. I find it spiritually energizing. I need to get better at it because I'm not consistent with it, but I feel energized by it because every morning after I meditate, if I remember, I will write in my journal, I will write my intentions down. And that's my morning is my time without screens. It's my time to just rejuvenate myself, or I should say, it's my time to set myself and get strong in my purpose and my intentions before I go at it and tackle my day. So in summary, 5 little energy hacks, especially in the face of dealing with chronic stress, are to stick with a consistent sleep schedule every day as much as possible, eat a protein-rich breakfast, get moving, do what motivates you, unplug, and create energizing rituals. Check out the show notes. I have a lot of extra links in there that tie up to what I talked about in this episode. And remember to grab my free burnout prevention guide if you're a healthcare professional. And you can also get the Power of When book on the show notes. So awesome book. I highly recommend it. I can't wait to talk to you guys again. Mwah. Have a great day. Love you all. Bye. Thanks for listening. If you want more, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. Also, share this episode with your friends, and I would be so grateful. If you feel inspired, leave a review on iTunes with an honest comment and or what you'd like to hear more of so you can help me out on my journey in delivering meaningful content. Thanks, mis amores.